Tomorrow, 1st of September, you're going to notice that your plants are going to start to get tired. Things are going to start coming to an end. All your tomatoes are going to be ripening, and your peppers. And they're going to be pretty much done for a year. So rather than just calling it a year, why not do some more sowings for autumn and winter? Because there's more things that you can grow than you might be aware of. They will grow slower, definitely, but they will still grow. So you can still get little harvests through autumn and winter. And because these are the times when the nights are going to start drawing in, nights are getting longer, days are getting shorter, there's not as much sunshine about as there has been over the last few months. It's that time of year that gets to people most. So don't sit in your house waiting for spring. Do something through autumn and winter like we do. And that'll keep your spirits up as well as keeping you busy, while at the same time providing yourself with a little bit of extra free food. And there's actually more things that you can grow than you might be aware of. It just depends on your climate, the area of the world that you live in. So always check what zone you're in, so that you can be 100% sure that what you're going to be planting is feasible for you at that time of year. Because there's not many plants that like frost, but there are quite a few cold hardy ones out there. And if you notice in this greenhouse, there's a lot gone from what you may have seen on previous videos. We did away with that big tomato plant because we've got lots more growing, and we've got batches and batches of blended tomatoes in the freezer now. Plenty of what we need to keep us going through autumn and winter in sauces and soups. But we've also done away with this big French bean plant. That has given us bags and bags of French beans since we started growing earlier in the year. But it's time to do away with things at a certain time. And for me in this greenhouse, I like to get it cleared out early September. I need everything out of here because we're going to bench it. And we're going to start and grow more things. We're going to sow more seeds. We're going to get more plants growing all the way through autumn and winter. But we're not putting any in the ground. They're all going to be done in containers. Because if we do it like that, we've got the option to offer them better protection in the event that we do start and get some early frosts. So if you want to carry on growing after what you might perceive as the end of the growing season, then try some more containers. And make sure that when you're growing your plants, you pick cold hardy versions. Not all lettuces are suited to grow through autumn and winter, but there are certain varieties that you can get that are strictly for the colder times of the year. I'll be setting a bench up and growing in containers. They won't all be this size, but that's kind of an example of what you could use. A cheap plastic container. Drill a few holes in bottom, pop your compost in, put some seedlings in and pop it on a bench. And then you've got that option, if it gets really cold, to drop some bubble wrap over the top of it to protect it. And that's going to help those little seedlings reach maturity. With a little bit of thinking and a bit of planning as well, we will set this up and we'll bench the entire thing. I've got a bench right across the back at the moment which has got pepper plants on. They won't be staying in here because they can't stand frost. They'll be taken indoors once we've took the fruit off them and cut them back. And then we can overwinter those plants, so we've got mature plants to start off with next spring. And then that bench will be used for as autumn sowings and as container growing. And we'll put benches down this side and down this side once all these tomato plants have come out. And we'll be growing in containers like this as well. They're only small, cheap containers from Poundland, and we just drill extra holes in bottom. And that is a recent sowing of baby spinach. And these little leaves that we've got at the moment are already good enough to harvest. And then we can let it grow on to produce more leaves. Spinach bolts in summer quite often because it can't stand to be too hot. So when the temperatures drop, they will also drop in your greenhouse. So you'll be able to grow yourself some spinach. It's not going to be too warm for them at all. And that's a great little crop to have through autumn and winter. We're also doing radish. This is called French breakfast. And we've multi-sown this quite densely. And the reason for that is we can either clip the leaves and take them for salads, or we can wait until we get the little peppery bulbs appear. So we've got two choices with something like that, but again, grown in such a small container. And if you benched even a small greenhouse out and put little containers on like this, just imagine how many varieties or how much volume of food you could actually grow for yourself. Then of course, you've got your lettuce. These have been growing outside quite happily in this container because lettuce doesn't do so well growing in a greenhouse, because if it gets too hot it will wilt. Also, you'll probably be growing it in ground, so it's very susceptible to slugs, and then nobody wants to eat that after you've seen a slug trail on it. But once again, tiny container like that, lots of holes in bottom, and look at the size of those lettuce already. And they're called little gem lettuces. So basically all through winter you'll be just picking off leaves and then letting the centre ones grow on to produce more. So you'll get somewhere in a region of about 4 pickings just from this container of fresh homegrown salad. So although we know that growing things like peppers, tomatoes, cucumbers is just not feasible in the UK, you just can't do it, there are some things that we can grow, and I'll go over just a few more for you so you can maximise your choice of what you want to try and grow through autumn or winter, especially new gardeners, which I know we have a lot of on this channel. It'll be a new experience for you to try things like this, and some things that you're going to be growing are going to reach maturity next spring, so you've already got something before you even start thinking of sowing your new seeds. Peas are really cold hardy plants, but at that time of year you won't grow peas for pods, you'll grow them for shoots. And basically you just need a small shallow tray, it doesn't need to be deep at all, and put lots of peas on it. Preferably soak them overnight first, just to rehydrate them. And you can put lots and lots of peas in a very small tray. Pretty much the way you would do doing microgreens, and you'll grow them for shoots. And pea shoots taste exactly like peas, and they do make a nice little garnish. And once you've cut the shoots off these peas, if you leave them, you'll probably get another 2 or 3 harvests from those same plants. So they'll be a good one to try, and obviously, like I say, they're cold hardy. Spring onions and overwintering onions you can also do. I mean, you can plant your onions obviously outside, you don't need things like that in a greenhouse, but you can still put them in a container because things like that are shallow rooted plants anyway. So you could multi-sow batches of spring onions in containers like the one I just showed you, like this, and just space them about 4 inches apart and grow yourself bunches and bunches of spring onions. Or in something that size you could put onion sets, but again you would need to buy the proper ones, which is a Japanese overwintering onion. And if you just plant them in a little container like this, again, onion sets, plant them about 3 inches apart, and you'll get quite a lot of bulbing onions, and they'll be ready for you come spring. And of course, if anything that you grow is in a container and we get any kind of freak weather like we should be used to this year in the UK, if it gets too hot, you can just pick the container up, pop it outside until it cools down, and then bring it back in to protect it during night. So that's another option for you for your spring onions or your bulbing onions. And again, as a newbie gardener, that'll be something you'll be harvesting at the beginning of the season next year. You can do cabbages now, because cabbages are really cold hardy, especially when you plant things like January King and Savoy cabbages. They can stand the frost, they can stand snow, and you can plant some outside, and once again, for an harvest, come spring next year. But you'll still need to put those nets over the top because those butterflies are still around right up until December. And once they've got infested with caterpillars, they'll just deteriorate over the months. So you can grow them in your greenhouse now into quite big seedlings and then plant them outside, cover them up, and then wait for your harvest to come early next year. Which then takes me to kale. Now we've got kale growing outside, it's been growing all year. You harvest the plants and you use it for a variety of things. But you can grow kale in containers in your greenhouse. You can grow it outside if that's better suited to you, but you're not trying to grow a big plant. What you'll be doing is taking baby leaves as you would with the spinach. Nice little small tender leaves, and let it keep growing. And if you plant quite a few, again, in a decent sized container like that, you could probably put about 9 plants in that one container because you're only growing very small plants to take baby harvests. So maybe that's an option if you like kale. And of course, as we've seen, you've got your lettuce, you've got your mustards, you've got your radishes, which are the ones that you can grow in the smallest containers. But there's lots and lots of varieties out there, so again, make sure you pick the right variety suited to the time of year. And something else that you can grow perfectly fine in containers are turnips, and you can grow those at this time of year. A variety that I grow quite often, you might have seen in previous videos, is one called Snowball. It's also suited obviously to the lower temperatures, but once again you can harvest things like the Snowball turnip in about 6 weeks, and you'll harvest them as baby turnips, not quite big ones, so probably the size of a golf ball. But again, it's something that you've grown in the months when most people will be growing nothing. And you know I always say something is better than nothing. And the last thing I'm going to mention in this video, for things that you can be sowing and growing starting September all the way through autumn, winter and into spring of 2023, is broad beans. And they'll quite happily grow outside. But again, pick the right variety. So you could plant those outside, unless of course you have really big problems with slugs. Then maybe you might want to skip it, because you can sow those in early spring. So I'm going to be doing all those sort of things over the next few weeks. So this is going to get completely emptied. We're going to get it benched up. We're going to get all those containers in here, and then we're going to start sowing all these varieties which I've just mentioned of salads and vegetables, so that we can keep going for as long as possible, supplying ourselves with fresh homegrown veg. If you want to see how that all turns out over autumn and winter, then please just hit that subscribe button and press that notifications bell, and we'll see you at the next update. Thank you very much for being part of this channel.